This podcast is sponsored by Teammates, a football quiz app like no other. The app has a choice of 2 eras, modern mode and vintage mode. Link up anytime club teammates to complete lineups. When you complete a lineup, you level up. You can progress up the leagues and through the cups, earn credits and win trophies. Download Teammates on the App Store now and test your knowledge. The link is in the description below.
It's the Championship Player Final Predictions from the Honest Football Podcast. I'm Craig Savage. Next to me is Daniel Cody, and down below is Charlie Betts. It is Brentford versus Fulham, and we did not get the semi-final right at all. Well, I got one team right. The other two got nil point. Let's start with Brentford because they beat Swansea first. An excellent 3-1 second leg victory considering they lost the first leg 1-0. How important was that first half for Brentford in the second leg, Cody?
Very important. I think before I talk about Brentford's performance, I need to give them an apology because at the start of the season, I stuck my neck on the line and said that they'd go up via the playoffs. And after watching that Barnsley performance on the last day of the season, I bottled it in the last episode. And I want to formally apologise for that. But I'm back on the Brentford bandwagon today. And that performance was sensational. And regardless of what happens on Tuesday night, that is the perfect send-off for Griffin Park.
Absolutely. And they lost 3 games on the bounce, Charlie. As we said about that first half, they completely ran out of the blocks there. Went 2-0 very early on. Did that first half performance showed how Brentford were post-lockdown?
I don't know. See, for me, it's a mentality thing with Brentford. And the reason I say that is that not that they were underdogs going into that game against Swansea, obviously. I'm on about the second leg. Obviously, they weren't. But they were 1-0 down. They could almost play a bit of a lost cause, a bit of freedom almost, because let's be honest, outside of probably us three here, most people were saying that Brentford were going to get a result against Swansea, taking away whatever had happened before. So there was definitely a bit of pressure on them, I think, in that first leg. Going into the second leg, and I know I talk about pressure a lot, but I think it's something in this level of the game that has a massive impact. We've known that from speaking to some of the players that we've spoken to. So what the point I'm getting at is that I think there was a bit less pressure on them, ironically, when they were 1-0 down. And that gave them that freedom to go out and play and express themselves. And not they obviously did that with great aplomb. That obviously then set up that second half where I think they were obviously dominant throughout the game, but I would still question slightly a mentality issue that they had to go 1-0 down in the first leg against, let's be honest, an okay Swansea side, not the best, but in good form, but not the best Swansea side. I would question that mentality going into that game. And that's giving me a bit of food for thought for Tuesday night, if I'm being brutally honest.
Brentford made it 3-0 early in the second half, but they conceded a sloppy goal to make it 3-1 from Pontus Jansson messing up and letting Brewster love the goalkeeper. Do you feel there's a little bit of vulnerability from Brentford defensively, Cody?
Again, I don't know whether Charlie's right. Is it defensively they were a bit vulnerable, or was it mentally they were a bit vulnerable? Because it's not a coincidence that all of the games they've played under pressure, they've struggled, and all of the games that or even times within games like that one, and all of the times there was no pressure on them, and Leeds and West Brom were the favourites to go up, they were blitzing teams. I mean, the Pontus Jansson thing is a one-off. He's a very good defender. He was there at the top end of the Championship with Leeds last year, and I think he's a key man for them. He was one of the big reasons I tipped them to go up. David Raya is a brilliant goalkeeper, but he has got an odd little clanger in him. He had one awful moment with his feet earlier in the season. I can't remember who against. But otherwise...
Hull,
yes. But otherwise, I think that Brentford side are really solid. And it was a brilliant performance, and it was far better than I could have possibly expected after the 3 games prior. So I don't think they'll care too much, and I don't think we should get too hung up on the mistake, because I think it was a brilliant performance otherwise.
Yes, I will. Hung up on the mistake because Charlie, you're a defender. I'm a defender. Cody's a defender. What was Pontus Jansson thinking for that mistake?
I don't know. I'm going to take it back to a grassroots level here. I can relate to this on numerous occasions. There was obviously. I'm not going to go on about the ball over the top of me and Craig that Dan will probably no doubt bring up in a minute. But I've been in a cup final where there's a couple of minutes to go till half time, and for whatever reason, I've tried to take on the centre forward rather than just knocking the ball out of play. But I know that it sounds silly, but we were winning at the time, and it is a complacency thing. And even as a centre half, and I think that's probably the difference between maybe Championship players in the elite level, with a degree, the Premier League, is that complacency of thinking, oh, actually, I can get away with this. We've taken a lead, and whether it be 1-0, 3-0, 5-0, you do get complacent as a centre half. The difference is if a striker does it, tries to step over and smashes one near the corner flag, it's sort of, okay, well, you can understand why they're 3-0 up. Defender tries to be a bit expressive, and obviously that's a risk of doing it. So I'm not condoning it, but I can understand how that happens. It's definitely complacency.
Can I just say, Craig, we were defenders, all three of us. No, none of us are anymore.
I've got something left in the tank.
I don't think so.
It is that we've all been there, surely, when you've been winning. If to flip it, if they were 1-0 down and he does that, that's criminal. There's literally no excuse for that whatsoever, and it can never defend it. Excuse the pun. But when you're winning like that, I'm not saying it's right, but I can understand where he's coming from when he's trying that. But it's definitely not right.
It's a playoff semi-final. It's only 2 goals winning. If you're going to make try and clear it like that with your back heel when your body shape's all wrong, and you should hook it with your left foot, you can't do that. You let them back in the tie.
But to be fair, Craig, otherwise they kept one of the most potent Swansea attacks, or one of the most potent attacks in the Championship post-January, quiet for the rest of the game in Brewster and Ayew. So,
can't
complain.
I'm not going to complain. I think that was just one really basic mistake. You shouldn't really be doing that in a Championship playoff semi-final, or anywhere, to be honest, in football when you have a little bit of a lead. But going back to what we've been there, going back to the positive side of it, Brentford out of the blocks quickly. They held on in the end, and that's something that they haven't done recently. So you have to give them credit. And to be honest, they do deserve to be in the final.
Correct.
And let's talk about the other team in the final. It's going to be a West London derby in North London. It is Fulham. Fulham took a 2-0 lead at the end of the first leg. Celebrated quite wildly, and Neil Harris wasn't happy with that. But Cardiff took an early lead in the second leg, but 24 seconds later, Fulham getting equalised. Cody.
I mean, Cardiff, let's be honest, first, we all put Fulham an apology as well, because none of us predicted that. And I found that really frustrating with Cardiff, is when they scored that goal after 8 minutes, wasn't it? I thought, they're going to get through here. I thought Cardiff will come back. To concede, and it's the biggest cliche in football, is you're most vulnerable after you've scored. To concede 24 seconds later in a playoff semi-final is beyond criminal. Talk about what Pontus Jansson did. That's nothing on this. And when they let in that goal, there was no going back. And to be fair, after that, they did well to run it as close as they did. But it was so disappointing for me, because I thought, we're going to look clever at the end of this. Our prediction's going to come good. And it was ruined in 30 seconds.
Charlie, Fulham were a bit vulnerable on the set pieces, long throw-ins and corners. Do you think Brentford should use that?
So without being egotistical, I think us as a podcast should take some credit for this, in the sense of, although we got the result wrong, we did say about Cardiff being very, disciplined in their approach, relying on set pieces, quite direct, quite diligent in the way they play. And I think the fact that Fulham came unstuck to that a little bit would worry me a slight amount if I was a Fulham sort of fan. But Brentford are the complete opposite of that. It's free-flowing, players, right winger goes to the left-hand side of the pitch. It's all that kind of thing. That's definitely harder to defend against. So if I was Brentford, I probably wouldn't do what Cardiff did. I know that they scored 2 goals against them and relying on set pieces, but I think Brentford will probably open them up so much more in open play rather than trying to play for long throws, trying to play for corners and that kind of thing.
Fulham were pretty much a possession-based team, and we've seen it throughout the season. But there was something different about Fulham the other day. When they were 2-1 down, they were holding on and being a bit more defensively. That's something that we haven't seen from them. How interesting to see that Fulham go to that tactic of trying to hold on rather than going out and trying to score the next goal.
Made the final harder to predict for me, I'll be honest with that, because they were pretty good here. I know they conceded a few chances towards the end, but they have got a good defence. I mean, Brian's a good player at left-back. They've got Ream at centre-half, who is a solid pro. Michael Hector's been a great addition this season. And Scott Parker was probably the most underrated holding midfielder in England for a while. And I know a lot came up about the Football Writers Award and all that the other day, but there's no better defensive-minded person to learn from. So I think in terms of discipline, Fulham did a lot in that second half that I didn't know they were possibly capable of. And equally, without Mitrovic, as Charlie said before, where he thought they might be a bit more of a one-man team, they've sort of alluded to the fact that they had to do something different. They had Robbie Reed up front. They had a bit more pace on the counter-attack. and they soaked up pressure, which I didn't know they were capable of, to be honest, because they've had a few disappointments at home conceding goals.
No, I was just going to say, I think to add to that, I think it'll be harder to do. It's really going to test their patience because Brentford are going to keep the ball a lot better than what Cardiff would.
Yeah.
And I agree that they were defending, but when you're defending, you can sort of set yourself against like a long ball, or when they're swinging it in the box for the last 15 minutes. But actually, if you've been chasing the game for an hour, where Brentford have kept the ball quite well and moved the ball so quickly, that's when it starts to get a bit harder and the concentration. So it'd be an interesting test of what you're just saying, an hour into the game, if they've been chasing shadows a lot more than what they would have done against Cardiff. But yeah, sorry, Craig.
No, I was just about to say about Mitrovic not playing for the two legs, and obviously they try something different, as Cody just said. But will he be fit for the final? Do you think he will be, or do you think he add that extra? Right, I'm gonna push myself now just to try and get fit for Tuesday.
I read
sorry.
I was just saying, I read Scott Parker this afternoon in an interview, and he said he could have played Thursday, but it was a bit of a niggle. However, there was no guarantee they were going to play this Tuesday, so it does seem a bit of a strange statement to sort of put out. I think he'll play. The fact he's come out and spoke publicly and said that he could have been fit, but we didn't want to risk him, would suggest that maybe he's probably going to play. Because I think otherwise, if he wasn't, I think there'd have been a bit more stout in the response of, no, he's probably not going to be fit. We're not sure, but he seemed fairly confident he will be. So if he doesn't play, he's then put himself in a bit of a hole, really, in terms of the media. But yeah,
I think he'll be on the bench.
Yeah.
Well, the time has come. A prediction for the final of Brentford versus Fulham. Cody, start with you.
Right. I started the season by saying Brentford got up in the playoffs. When we came back from the lockdown, out of superstition in the end, I predicted them to not win every week. When I started predicting them to win, they lost. Now there's pressure on them again, and that would suggest that they're going to fall away. But I said Brentford would go up in the playoffs at the start of the season, and I have to predict them to win the playoff final. Otherwise, I would be nothing if not stupid. So whether or not they win it, I'm going for Brentford. Don't pull that face at me. And I am going for a thriller. And I know we've seen before, we had a real one-way tie in League Two. Northampton wiped the floor with Exeter in simple terms. Wickham were exactly what we expected them to be in the League One playoff final. But for the Championship, I'm going for a thriller. Both teams will keep the ball well. Both teams will create chances. Both teams under pressure have been susceptible at the back if you take away the second half for Fulham in midweek. So I'm going for Brentford 3, Fulham 2.
Charlie.
But I don't know that that's going to be right.
This is not a sitting on the fence, but I don't think there's much to separate. So I honestly think it'll go to penalties. I think it depends. I mean, forgive my pronunciation, but the lad Cabano, who scored for Fulham there's a doubt about his fitness, so that could be a big loss for them if he doesn't play. I wouldn't go necessarily as much of a thriller. I think there'll be goals in it. I think it'll be 2-2 after extra, so 1-1 full time, 2-2 in extra time, penalties, and then you could flip a coin. But just to make it interesting, I'll go Fulham on penalties. But I reckon it'll be 2-2 by the end of extra time.
Oh, okay. I think this is going to be. I think it's going to be a very open game, to be honest. But the result is going to be tight. Brentford's front three is absolutely fantastic. Ben Rama, Watkins, Magueo. Oh, they're just fantastic. Fulham, on the other hand, they're, to be fair, on the most decent player. Mitrovic, he stays fit. Knocker, he's obviously got experience, been in the Championship playoffs. Cabana, if he's fit, which is a shame because he scored he scored a fantastic free kick in the first leg. And I think, it's going to be tight. I really do. Brentford are going to win this one 2-1. I'm going to go for Brentford. I want the dream. I want a new side in the Premier League. And it'd be nice. It'd be a nice fit and get end of Griffin Park, move to a new stadium, Premier League football. What more can you ask for? I wish Luton did that in a few years' time. When
They paid for the stadium.
Well, there you go. Yeah, it's the richest game in football, people. Richest game in football. And that will pay off the stadium. I wish Luton could do that in a few years' time. Power Court. Just before I say thank you to Charlie and Cody, just want to quick shout. The two ties, absolutely fantastic. And that sums up the drama of the playoffs because all four teams went for it. It was absolutely brilliant. And that's what you want from the playoffs. Not this defensive, just stingy part of the bus. They're always tight. That was absolutely fantastic. Anyway, that is it for our predictions of the Championship playoff final. This is the final prediction of the season. We will also review the Championship after the playoff final of giving a grade list and of all the teams. And also we're going to review our predictions from the start of last season of the League One, Championship, League Two, Scotland, Northern Ireland, and everywhere else because we were absolutely shocking. We were absolutely terrible. Well, you will see that it will be on the channel. Anyway, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to us. You can follow us on Twitter @HonestFootball3, and we'll see you next time.